Previously on Truth and Justice. In my opinion, after looking at all of the evidence, I would offer the following profile of Kiao's murder. I no longer believe that this was a random act of violence. I believe that Kiao was being stalked, and she knew she was being stalked. I don't think that the attack began where it ended. I don't believe that this was a premeditated murder, but I do believe it was a premeditated attack. I think the abduction went horribly wrong when Kiao began to defend herself with her knife, and the result was her attackers feeling that they had no other choice but to kill her. This could indicate that Kiao either knew her attackers, or at least could recognize them. I think that our left-handed assailant is probably younger and criminally inexperienced, or at least inexperienced with violence. What we need here is an expert, a real criminal profiler. The only thing necessary for evil to prevail is that good men and women do nothing. I am simply a mouthpiece for good men and women around the world who want to make a difference. Engagement and the involvement of ordinary people is what is going to change our criminal justice system. Many have tried and failed, but the only difference between them and me is I'm bringing an army with me. This is Truth and Justice. Hello everybody and welcome back to Truth and Justice. I'm your host, Bob Ruff, and in today's episode we are finally doing something that was never done in Kiao's case. A real crime scene reconstruction by a real expert. Jim Clemente is known throughout the world as one of the greatest criminal behavior analysts from around the globe. Jim started his career as a New York City prosecutor before he made the move to join the FBI. Jim spent over 20 years working in the FBI's Behavior Analysis Unit. After retiring as a supervisory special agent, Jim is now a writer and producer on the TV show Criminal Minds. Profiling, while it is hotly debated, in my opinion is an incredible tool in your toolbox as an investigator, especially when you have a crime with no obvious leads and no obvious forensic evidence to evaluate. Even random crimes aren't random. Every victim of a crime was chosen at a particular time, at a particular place, for a particular reason. Profilers like Jim look at the crime scene, assess victimology, and try to determine why this victim was chosen. Why at that time, and why at that place. Figuring out the why oftentimes will lead us to the who. And that's what we're trying to figure out in this case. Who killed Kiao Gove? This interview you're about to hear with Jim Clemente is incredibly interesting, and it's a long one. So before we get started with Jim's interview, I first want to take a few minutes to tell you about a brand new sponsor that I think all of you ladies listening are going to love. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Lay Tote. So here's the deal. My wife Becky loves new clothes, but she hates to shop. I mean, who wants to wander through a store trying to find that perfect outfit? You have to deal with the crowds, the pushy salespeople, not being able to find the clothes you want and the size you need. There are a lot of women out there that just hate this process, so they resort to buying their clothes online. But when you buy online, you don't get the opportunity to try the clothes on or to see how they fit and look on you. Well, what if I told you that you could have all the new clothes you want to wear every month in styles that are customized just for you and in sizes that you know are going to fit for less than $40 a month? Well, what I just described to you is Lay Tote. Lay Tote is a fashion subscription box that sends brand name clothing and accessories right to your door. and they'll send you as many totes as you want every month. You simply wear, return, and repeat. So this is how it works. When you sign up for Lay Tote, you pay only $39 a month. Once you sign up, the fashion experts at Lay Tote are going to create a custom tote just for you. And they think of everything. They look at the 10-day forecast of where you live, the sizes that you gave them, the type of style you like, and they put together a box full of clothing and accessories for you. You have the option to go in and take what they put together or change and customize things. Your tote will get shipped right to your door. When it arrives, you can wear the clothes for as long as you want to, or even just wear them for a day and send them right back. As soon as the post office scans in your return envelope, your fashion expert will put together your next tote for you to customize. And within a few days, you have a whole nother set of outfits to wear. And your monthly fee stays the same whether you do it once, 10 times, even 20 times a month. And I know that one thing that my wife complains about all the time is that when you buy clothes online, different brands have different sizing. Well, Lay Tote's taken care of all of that. They actually measure the clothes to make sure that the clothes you get are going to fit you. And after every order, you give them feedback and tell them which items you liked, which ones you didn't like, which ones fit well, which ones didn't fit. So every time you send a tote back, they get closer to customizing exactly what you're looking for. And you can change your totes at any time. Maybe it's wintertime in Michigan, so Lay Tote's sending you jeans and sweaters, but you're getting ready to go on vacation to Jamaica. All you have to do is go and customize your tote and tell them you want bathing suits this week. Maybe you don't typically wear jewelry, but you happen to be going to a fancy ball and you want a necklace and earrings. You just customize your cart and you'll have it in a couple of days. Becky's been using Lay Tote for a little while now, and she absolutely loves it. She always has cool, new, trendy clothes to wear and never has to pay more than that $39 a month. And when she finds an item that she really likes, all she has to do is keep it and not send it back in the bag, and then they're hers. And we just get charged a fraction of the retail price. It really is an amazing deal. To check it out, just go to laytote.com. That's lay, L-E, tote, TOTE.com, and get started for as low as $39 a month. And enter promo code TRUTH to get 50% off of your first month. Fill out your style profile and sign up to get a custom tote delivered right to your door. Wear what you want, return everything in the mail when you're done, and you'll get a new box within days. Again, that's laytote.com. Enter my code TRUTH and feel fabulous with fashion delivered right to your door. Okay, we have a very special guest on the line today. And Jim, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
I'm Jim Clementi. I'm a retired FBI profiler, former New York City prosecutor, and the host of Real Crime Profile and a new podcast that's about to premiere called Locked Up Abroad.
All right. Well, Jim, I know you're a very, very busy guy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come on today. So a little background. I gave Jim a copy of the ME's reports and all the information that you all heard me break down last week. He's had this information for a couple of weeks, and he's been working on it. In the meantime, you all heard last week me give my amateur version of a profile. Now, going into this conversation, I have no idea what Jim's going to tell me, and Jim doesn't let me tell him anything during the course of his evaluating a crime scene.
The only way to keep it from being biased, I hope we're not far off from each other, but I certainly have some questions to ask you about the evidence and also some of the fact patterns. And then I'd like to, if it's okay, go through the autopsy report with you and talk about what kind of crime this was and what kind of scene this was. And hopefully we'll be able to come to some conclusions.
That sounds great. I guess let's go ahead and start with the questions that you have for me, Jim.
Well, one of the first questions I have, obviously because of where the knife was found in the victim's hands, was, is the victim right or left-handed?
We still don't have that information. I'm in contact with her son, and he did speak with me one time and said I could call him back, but that was one of the questions that I've asked him and have not gotten a response back yet. So we're still unknown at this point as far as handedness on Keough.
And that knife, is it true that it was from a collection that was in the home, that it was her knife?
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Her husband, Kenneth, I think it was about a week after the murder, a few days after the murder, noticed that one of the knives, the big butcher knife from their set at home, was missing. The detectives then showed him a photo of the knife that they took from the crime scene, and he identified that as being the knife that was missing.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of factors that I think weigh in there. We might as well talk about them right now. The first one is that she had apparently reported to her husband that she thought she was being followed at some point, like a few days before.
Right. There were mixed reports, and this is some of the information I gave Jim about victimology. The husband testified at trial that a few days before the murder, that she had told him that there was a white Cadillac following her and asking her if she wanted a ride during her morning walk.
And what did she do with respect to that?
Sounds like nothing. Based on the trial testimony, it looks like she was just not willing to give up her walks. Her husband said that he had warned her many times or not warned her, but cautioned her several times that she shouldn't walk alone. She should walk with a friend. And at the very least, wear loose-fitting clothes, no jewelry, things like that, to not draw attention to herself. But from the way it sounds, she was going to walk whether he wanted her to or not.
Well, I will say this, that in a number of cases, it's with alarming frequency, women who were killed by people who had been following or stalking them, who reported feeling like they were being followed or watched. Many of them were actually killed by the person that was stalking them. So that is something to keep in the back of our mind, that the fact that somebody reports that somebody else is following or watching them, and then that person gets killed shortly thereafter, that's a high risk factor when you're looking at who might have actually done this. In other words, it would have been an extreme coincidence if a few days earlier somebody was following her and then somebody else just happened to kill her. And we have to look at all the facts here and determine whether or not there was any kind of history with this victim. But we'll go into that. I'm just giving you some thoughts off the cuff here as we're talking about that.
Okay.
So obviously she was not very big in stature, but was she very physical? Do you know if she worked out, if the only exercise she got was the walking, whether she ever took martial arts, anything like that?
I don't have any information about her taking any martial arts, but her husband said that she did work out on what he called a solar flex. I assume he meant a solo flex machine. She would do that every morning before her walk.
All right. So she probably had some good endurance. The fact that she had a knife in her hand, I think, may relate back to a couple of things. One, if you look at what was found with her at the autopsy, it talks about her jogging pants, her top, and a one piece, he describes it as elastic corset. It could very well have been one of the brands is Spanx. It could have also been something else, but I know that when I would run, when I was in the FBI, it's like a 9-inch wide band, like elastic band that goes around your waist. It's one piece, and it actually on the inside of it has a slip holster that you can put your gun in. I wonder if there's one possibility that she decided to start bringing a knife with her because she was being followed, and maybe the warnings that her husband gave her and the fact that the neighborhood was going down might have led her to try to protect herself by concealing a knife under her clothes. So just another thing that we should keep in the back of our minds here.
You mean like she would use the corset to like slide the knife into so she didn't have to carry it?
Yes. So it wasn't obvious. Okay. And, I used to carry my gun in the small of my back, in the center of my back. I could reach it with either hand that way, and it wasn't obvious that I was carrying a gun. If you carry it on your side, it's a lot more obvious when you're running. So it could have been something like that. It could also have been sort of a protection. She could have worn that on the underside and then put the knife in the elastic band of her pants, for example, and held it there. So it might have been to protect her from the edge of the knife. But it's just one thing that comes to mind that we should think about, that we should keep in the back of our minds.
Well, yeah, and it makes some sense because I always wondered about the corset because Kia was 5 foot tall, 110 pounds, and from all accounts seems to be extremely physically fit. I couldn't wrap my brain around why she would be wearing a corset, especially when she's on a walk.
Yeah. Right. I think it's more likely to be something like that, like a Spanx or something that she used to conceal a weapon, because, he clearly describes her as, not overweight. Anyway, The other thing that I thought was